were taken by Germany regarding security. And that gives me optimism, that gives me hope that at the end of the day, we will be rational, take rational decisions. At the moment, we see so many irrational things being done. We see murder committed, but we also have reason and hope. Reasonable action and hope are very important so that the Ukraine can really defend our common values. A question to the two ministers. First of all, the Russian president has increased the state of alert of nuclear missiles. Do we see a threat of a nuclear war given the arms deliveries coming from the EU and NATO? And a question to you, Minister Baerbock. The Germans in Russia, will they be called back to Germany? We have heard the statement of President Putin, and having seen the events of recent days regarding this war of aggression, we really have to take his threats very seriously. But let me once again say crystal clear, NATO is not a threat for Russia. This war was started by Russia, and Putin can stop this war anytime. And I call upon Russia to refrain from such escalating statements. As far as German citizens in Russia are concerned, yesterday we have already said very clearly that in the face of the fact that our airspace is close to Russian airlines, and also German airlines no longer have the opportunity to fly. And that is why we have said that German citizens can still leave the Russian Federation. We are in a situation we are not sure what the next days are going to bring. And everyone that doesn't want or need to stay in Russia will have the opportunity, and we are going to assist them in order to return. And therefore, embassies will also look at the individual situation of family members of German citizens. Embassies will also look at the individual situation of family members of German citizens. As the federal minister has said, I also can say, we have to take every statement seriously. Although this statement might sound crazy, recent events have shown us that the rational thinking of some leaders was overestimated by us, and that is why I think we are no longer in a situation where we can choose between good and bad solutions. We only have bad solutions at the moment, and the lesser evil would be to take sanctions that will indeed have an effect on the Russian economy, and that might also be a dilemma for the Russian population. They may wonder, is it really correct of Putin to act the way he does? And so we think that the unity that the Western world has demonstrated is the strongest answer when it comes to the threats and dangers emanating from there. The threats are not going to stop anytime soon. Now even Sweden and Finland think about joining NATO, and as soon as they said something to that effect, immediately
the Russians tried to take it with an air assault, was beaten back. As far as we know, the Ukrainians still hold it, and that's critical, of course, because if the Russians had an airfield to work with, they could actually attack Kiev much more easily. They don't seem to have got that. So they do have some real problems because their lines of communication are now quite long. They're being attacked on their lines of communications, but the Ukrainians are fighting with everything they've got. They can't fight forever. The Russians can keep bringing fresh troops in, And there are reports today that fresh Russian troops are moving to the Belarusian border. They might well send them down the column that they have got open to try to encircle Kiev in the near future.
It does seem that the Russian advances has stalled. Where does that leave President Putin in terms of options?
It leaves President Putin having to choose what sort of weapons to use. I mean, we've had this footage in of what looked like a pattern of cluster munition explosions in Kharkiv. These sorts of weapons are devastating in civilian areas, not to mention illegal. President Putin may have to decide how brutal he is prepared to be in this case. The Ukrainians are saying, we're going to peace talks in Belarus. We'll talk as if we are not fighting, and we'll fight as if we're not talking. But President Putin seems to be facing the choice as to whether he goes negotiating or goes brutal. And I guess he hasn't really had to face that choice for a very long time.
Okay, Michael, thanks very much. Really interesting analysis. Let's just bring you some breaking news out of Downing Street. Let's cross live to Westminster and our chief political correspondent, John Craig.
The Prime Minister is stepping up his diplomatic efforts as well as all the sanctions and military aid for Ukraine. Number 10 has just announced that the Prime Minister will travel to Estonia and Poland tomorrow for meetings with his counterparts and the NATO Secretary General. The Prime Minister has been making it very clear, we're told, that we do not want to unnecessarily inflict damage on the Russian people, many of whom are bravely taking to the streets to protest this violence, this invasion that the measures we're introducing and large parts of the world are introducing are to bring down the Putin regime. Now, they say they're not seeking regime change, talking about how they stop Russia seeking to subjugate a democratic country. Now, the PM is going to speak to the Polish president this afternoon ahead of his visit. Cabinet has met this morning. The Prime Minister told his colleagues it's becoming clearer with each day that President Putin has made a colossal mistake, believing the guns of his tanks would be garlanded with roses, when instead the Ukrainian people have put up a fierce resistance in defense of their homeland. Mr. Johnson said the latest intelligence suggested Putin's advances had been hampered by logistical problems and the heroic efforts of the Ukrainian military, who were inflicting significant casualties on the Russian troops. He also said, this is the Prime Minister talking to the Cabinet, that President Putin had underestimated Western unity. Went on to talk about the ruble falling, inflation, on the three